Hello everyone, we are going to start to solve February-March 2022 IGCSE chemistry. So let's start with question number 1. In the first question, he says, which gas has the fastest rate of diffusion? As we know, the fastest rate of diffusion means the smallest relative molecular mass. So we have to work out the relative molecular mass of each substance to know which one has the fastest rate of diffusion. So the fastest rate of diffusion equals the smallest MR. So the hydrogen have mass number 1, so the MR is 2 multiplied by 1, 2. The methane, CH4, 12 plus 4, 16. The carbon dioxide, carbon 12 plus 2 multiplied by 16 equals 44. And finally, the sulfur dioxide, sulfur has mass number 32 plus 2 multiplied by 16, the mass number of oxygen, equals 64. So the one which has the smallest MR is hydrogen, the answer A. The second question, in which state does 1 cubic decimeter of methane contains the most particles? Of course, in the solid state, the particles are very crowded, very close to each other. So in the solid state, we have the greatest number of particles per unit volume. In the third question, which statement explains why isotopes of the same element, they have the same chemical properties? Actually, the chemical properties is related to the number of electrons in the outer shell. So we say that in group 1, all the elements have the same chemical properties because all of them have 1 electron in the outer shell. Group 7, they all have the same chemical properties because they have 7 electrons in the outer shell. So does the isotope? The isotopes have the same chemical properties because they have the same number of electrons in the outer shell, so they have the same electronic structure. The isotopes have the same number of protons and same number of electrons, but different number of neutrons. In the fourth question, how to write the chemical formula of the compound? So we will start with P and then Q. Count the number of the electrons in the outer shell, 6 electrons. So the valency of P is 2. Actually, we know the valency by the group number. From group 1 to group 4, the valency equal to the group number. Starting from group 5 to group 8, valency equal 8 minus group number. For example, group 5, it has valency 3. Group 6 have valency 2, group 7 have valency 1, and group 8 have valency 0. So the valency of P is 2, as it belongs to group 6, and Q has valency 1. And the second step, we have to swap the valencies, 1, 2, so the answer is D, PQ2. Next, fermentation of sugar produces a mixture of ethanol solution and solid yeast. How to remove the solid yeast? Actually, it is insoluble. It is solid. So to remove it, we have to carry out filtration, of course, using filter paper and filter funnel and conical flask. So the yeast will be trapped on the filter paper as residue, and the rest of the mixture will move through the filter paper as filtrate, which is the ethanol solution. Okay. So which row explains why copper is a good conductor of electricity at room temperature? Actually, we have to explain the metallic bonding in any metal. In any metal, we have lattice of positive ions regularly arranged in a sea of electrons, delocalized electrons. What is meant by delocalized electrons? Electrons that can move freely. So when the electric current passes through a piece of metal, the electrons will move to conduct electricity, but the positive ions will not move. And there is no chemical change happens when the electricity is passing through metal. No new substance is formed. So the copper ions are not moving, but the electrons are moving, so the answer is B. In question 7, we have to say some of the properties of diamond and graphite. We have to start with the similarities. of the diamond and the graphite, the similarities. Actually, both of them are made up of carbon only. Both of them have high melting point. Both of them are insoluble in any solvent. They do not dissolve in any solvent. Actually, graphite is two-dimensional. It is 2D, but the diamond is three-dimensional. As graphite is made up of flat sheets, so it is two-dimensional. Each carbon atom in the graphite is bonded with other 3 carbon atoms in hexagonal shape. But in the diamond, each carbon atom is bonded with other 4 carbon atoms in tetrahedral shape. So you know that carbon has 4 electrons in the outer shell. So in the graphite, each carbon atom has 1 free electron that can move easily. So this is why graphite is good conductor of electricity. Okay, but the diamond is bad conductor of electricity. Okay, as you see, we have weak forces between the layers. There are weak forces between the layers, so it will enable the layers to slide over each other. The layers can slide over each other. So this is why graphite is soft. It is used as lubricant in pencils. But the diamond is very hard due to the network of strong covalent bonds that extend through the structure. So diamond is used in drilling as it's very hard. So let's start to see the choices. In choice A, diamond and graphite are both pure carbon and they are both macromolecules, which means that they are giant covalent structures. And this is correct, giant covalent structures. Okay. Next, sodium nitrite contains the nitride ion N3-. Sodium nitrite is unstable and decomposes into its elements. So what is the correct equation for the decomposition of sodium nitrite? Let's start by guessing the formula of sodium nitrite. Sodium, nitrogen. As we said, how to write the chemical formula? Sodium belongs to group 1, so its valency is 1. Nitrogen belongs to group 5, so its valency is 3. Swap the valencies. 3, 1. So the correct formula for sodium nitrite, Na3N. So there are 2 choices that have Na3N. So which one is correct? Actually, the nitrogen is diatomic, which means 2 atoms per molecule. So this one is incorrect, so we have to start choosing B. How to write the empirical formula of a compound? Firstly, you have to make a table to list the elements that are found in this compound. We have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. First step, we have to work out the number of moles of each one of them. So let's start. How to work out the number of moles? By the mass given divided by the mass of 1 mole. The percentages represents the mass given per 100 grams. So what is the number of moles of carbon? The mass given 26.7. divided by the mass of 1 mole of carbon, which is the relative atomic mass of the carbon, the mass number of carbon, which is 12, using the calculator. Okay, so the answer is 2.225. Hydrogen, the mass of hydrogen given, 2.2 divided by 1. The mass number of hydrogen is 1, so 2.2. So what is the mass given of oxygen? The rest of 100. So 100 minus 26.7 plus 2.2. Let's do this on the calculator. So the mass of oxygen, mass given of oxygen, the rest of the 100, 71.1 divided by the mass of 1 mole of oxygen, the mass number of oxygen, 16, equals. So it is 4.44. Okay, the second step is to work out the whole number ratio. Whole number ratio. So what is the smallest number? in these numbers, so it is the 2.2. So we have to divide all the numbers by 2.2. So the ratio will be 1 to 1 to 2. So this is the empirical formula. So 1 carbon, 1 hydrogen, and 2 oxygen. So the answer is D. Cesium fluoride is an ionic compound, which means it is made up of metal and non-metal. And the ionic compounds, they are formed up of positive and negative ions with strong attractive forces between them. There are very strong attractive forces between them that are called ionic bonds. So which statements are correct? It conducts electricity when solid. Actually, this is wrong because the ions cannot move in the solid state. They have high melting point, yes, due to the strong attractive forces between the positive and negative ions. So it requires a lot of energy to be broken. Yes, it is soluble in water. High volatile means low melting point, and this is incorrect. So the answer is C. In the following question, which diagram shows the direction of movement of ions and electrons during the electrolysis of molten sodium chloride? Okay, the cathode is the negative electrode, and the anode is the positive electrode. So the sodium ions will be attracted to the cathode because the sodium ions are positive and the cathode is negative, and the chloride ions will be attracted to the anode. Okay, we have two answers that includes this, the sodium attracted to the cathode and the chloride ions attracted to the anode. Okay, so which one is correct? We will know this by the movement of the electrons. If this is the cathode, so this is the positive, this is the negative terminal of the cell. And if this is the anode, which is the positive electrode, so this is the positive terminal of the cell. So how the electrons move? The electrons are repelled away, moving away from the negative terminal of the cell towards, they are attracted to the positive terminal of the cell. So choice A is correct because the electrons are moving in the correct way. But in answer D, this is the positive and this is the negative. So the electrons are moving in this direction. This is incorrect because the electrons move towards the positive of the cell. So this one is incorrect. So the answer is A. Okay, calcium carbonate reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to produce carbon dioxide. The equation is shown, and the relative formula mass of calcium carbonate is 100. This is the MR of the calcium carbonate, which is the mass of 1 mole of calcium carbonate. Okay, so what is the question? 10 grams of calcium carbonate is reacted with excess hydrochloric acid. What is the mass of carbon dioxide produced? The first step, we have to work out the number of moles of calcium carbonate. As we said before, the number of moles equal the mass given divided by the mass of 1 mole. So what is the mass given of calcium carbonate? 10 grams, and the mass of 1 mole is 100, equals 0.1. So this is the number of moles of calcium carbonate. When you see the equation, the mole ratio between the calcium carbonate and the carbon dioxide is 1:1, which means that always the number of moles of carbon dioxide is equal to the number of moles of calcium carbonate. So if we have 2 moles of calcium carbonate, so there is 2 moles of carbon dioxide. So the number of moles is 0.1 of calcium carbonate, so the number of moles of carbon dioxide is 0.1. So what is the mass of 0.1 moles carbon dioxide? This is the triangle. Number of moles equal mass divided by MR, which is the mass of 1 mole. So now we have to work out the mass. So mass equal number of moles multiplied by the MR. The number of moles of carbon dioxide 0.1 and the MR of carbon dioxide 12 plus 2 multiplied by 16 equals 0.1 multiplied by 44, which is 4.4. So the answer is C. Molten sodium chloride and concentrated aqueous sodium chloride are electrolyzed using platinum electrodes. So what are the products at the negative? What is attracted to the negative? The positive ions. So what is the positive ion in sodium chloride? Sodium only. there is no competition at the cathode because the sodium ions are the only positive ions in the molten sodium chloride. There is no water. So sodium will be formed at the cathode. So in the concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, there is competition at the cathode because we have the hydrogen positive ions of the water and the sodium positive ions of the ionic compound. So they will compete at the cathode. Which one will be discharged? The one which is less reactive. So the hydrogen is less reactive. So it will be formed at the cathode. So the answer is C. In the electroplating, the object that will be electroplated must be connected to the negative. If we have a ring and we want to electroplate it with, for example, silver, so we have to bring silver rod, connect it to the positive to be acting as anode, and the ring must be connected to the negative, which is the cathode. So the ring is the cathode, and the silver rod, it is acting as anode, the positive. So how the electrons move through the external circuit, as we said, the electrons move towards the positive and away from the negative terminal of the cell. So the silver rod will dissolve, it will lose electrons. So the silver will lose electrons to form silver ions. And the silver ions will be moving through the electrolyte. The electrolyte must be salt solution of the metal used in coating. What is the metal used in coating? In this example, silver. So we have to bring, for example, silver nitrate solution. Okay, so the silver ions will be attracted to the ring because the ring is the cathode, it is the negative electrode, and will be discharged by gaining the electrons that are coming from the external circuit to be discharged to silver atoms, and the ring will be coated by silver. This is how electroplating works. So 3 points you shouldn't forget about electroplating: that the metal that will be coated should be the cathode, the metal used in coating should be the anode, and the electrolyte must be salt solution of the metal used in coating. So an object electroplated with silver using an aqueous silver salt as an electrolyte. So the object that will be electroplated is the cathode. The other electrode is made up of silver. So the answer is D. Which choice represents endothermic reaction? Actually, in the endothermic reaction, energy is taken in. Okay, so the energy is taken in from the surroundings, and this causes fall in temperature. Okay, so the energy is taken in, and this causes decrease in temperatures, so the answer is C. Which statement about fuels is correct? Actually, there are 3 fuels that are really important to know some information about them: the hydrogen, and the hydrocarbons, and the uranium-235. Okay, both hydrogen and hydrocarbons must be oxidized to release the energy from them. Hydrogen, in the hydrogen-oxygen fuel cells, it releases only water. Hydrocarbons, when they are burned, if the burning is complete combustion, so it will produce carbon dioxide plus water. If it is incomplete combustion, so carbon monoxide plus water. Uranium doesn't react with oxygen, doesn't produce carbon dioxide, it decays. Okay, so which statement about fuels is correct? Heat energy is only produced by burning fuels? No, because uranium doesn't burn and it releases heat energy. All of them release heat. Hydrogen is used as a fuel, although it is difficult to store. Yes, because hydrogen, it has small volume, it has small density, and it takes a large volume to be stored. So it's so hard to store because it is also flammable, it catches fire. So it is so difficult to store the hydrogen. Which statement about endothermic and exothermic reactions is correct? Actually, you have to know in any chemical reaction, there is energy needed to break bonds in the reactants, and also there is energy released to make bonds in products. This happens in any chemical reaction. Energy needed to break the bonds in reactants and energy released to make bonds in products. If the energy needed is greater, so this means that the reaction is endothermic. If the energy released is greater, so this means that the reaction is exothermic. So which choice is correct? The first one, endothermic reaction, less energy is absorbed. This is incorrect, because in endothermic reactions, more energy is absorbed. In endothermic reaction, the activation energy is always higher than in an exothermic reaction. There is no relation between the amount of activation energy in endothermic and exothermic reaction. There is no relation. In an exothermic reaction, more energy is absorbed. This is incorrect. This happens in endothermic reactions. So the answer is D, that the reactants are higher on the energy level diagram than the products, because in the exothermic reactions, energy is given out. This is the activation energy, and the energy is given out. So the reactants are above the products due to the loss of energy. So the products have less energy than the reactants in the energy level diagrams. The reaction used to manufacture ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen is reversible, which is the Haber process. So which statement describes equilibrium? Actually, the forward and the backward reaction, they have equal rates, so the concentration of reactants and products doesn't change. This is the definition of equilibrium. How does increasing concentration affect the reacting particles in a chemical reaction? Actually, it increases the collision rate because we will have more particles per unit volume, so the frequency of collisions will increase. But it will not increase the proportion of the particles with activation energy, because only temperature do this. The temperature increases the number of particles that have enough energy to react, because the particles gain more energy. But in the concentration, we increase the number of particles per unit volume. So this doesn't affect the amount of energy inside the particles, okay? So it will increase the collisions rate only. In the following question, methyl orange, we know that methyl orange is red with acid, and it is orange with neutral. And in the alkaline solutions, it is yellow. So methyl orange is added to dilute hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide, so the answer is B. Zinc is amphoteric, which means it reacts with both acids and bases, because it has acidic features when it reacts with a base, and it has basic features when it reacts with an acid. So it reacts with both acids and bases. The amphoteric oxides are the aluminum oxide or hydroxide and the zinc oxide or hydroxide. So these four substances are classified as amphoteric oxides. Okay, so information about some silver compounds is shown. Which equation shows a reaction which cannot be used to make a silver salt? In the reactivity series, silver is below hydrogen in the reactivity series. So the metals that are below the hydrogen in the reactivity series, they couldn't react with acids. They cannot displace the hydrogen in the acid if they are native, if they are in a form of element. They cannot displace the hydrogen of the acid. So reaction D doesn't happen. But if the silver is in a form of base, as an oxide or carbonate, it can react with acids. And also, silver nitrate can react with hydrochloric acid in double displacement reaction, okay? But the silver alone, as an element, native, it couldn't displace the hydrogen of the acid. So reaction D cannot happen. The ethanoic acid is weak acid, which means it makes partial ionization and it has high pH. Sodium hydroxide is a strong base, full ionized, and has high pH. So which statements are correct? Aqueous ethanoic accept protons? No, because acids are proton donors. HCl, CH3, COOH, the ethanoic acid, all the acids, they donate H+. They produce H+, so they are proton donors, not proton acceptors. Ethanoic acid is fully dissociated into ions. This is incorrect because it is weak. It only partially ionizes. Sodium hydroxide fully dissociated, fully ionized. This is correct because this is strong. The reaction produces salt and water. Yes, because it is neutralization reaction between an acid and alkali. So the answer is D. 3 properties of element X. It is monoatomic, unreactive, full outer shell. These are the features of group 8, the noble gases. They are inert or unreactive because they have full outer shell of electrons. Which word equation represents a reaction that occurs? It is really important to know that the atom displaces the ion. The atom must displaces the ion if the atom is more reactive than the ion. So carbon is less reactive than sodium, so it couldn't displace the sodium. So the first one is incorrect. Iron is also below sodium in the reactivity series, so it couldn't displace the sodium. Copper is less reactive than iron, so it couldn't displace the iron. But carbon is above iron in the reactivity series, so it can displace the iron as it happens in the blast furnace. So the answer is D. Which statement about the extraction of aluminum is correct? Let's read the choices. Aluminum is formed at the cathode, yes. During the electrolysis of the aluminum oxide, yes, because the aluminum ions are positively charged and the cathode is negative, so the aluminum ions will be attracted to the cathode. So the brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. So what is mixed with copper? The answer is D, zinc. The table gives us some properties of an element: high melting point, form colored compounds, high density, good conductor of electricity. So these are properties of transition elements. And we need to choose one extra property for transition elements. So the answer is A, they act as catalysts. And also they have variable oxidation states. And they are excellent resistance to corrosion due to the low reactivity. These are the chemical properties. Ammonia in the Haber process, what are the conditions of the Haber? Actually, you have to know the conditions of Haber versus the conditions of the contact process. This is really an important point. Haber means making ammonia, and contact process making sulfuric acid. So the conditions are same temperature for 150 degrees Celsius in both. But in Haber, we need 200 atmospheric pressure, and in contact, we need 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure. The catalyst in Haber is iron, but in contact process, it is vanadium oxide. So what are the conditions of Haber? 450 temperature, 200 atmospheric pressure. So the answer will be C, and the source of nitrogen from the air by the fractional distillation of liquefied air, and the source of hydrogen from hydrocarbons. Like methane, when it reacts with the steam, it produces carbon monoxide plus hydrogen. Okay, how many species are acting as base? Actually, the base is proton acceptor. So the water becomes hydronium H3O. It accepts protons, so the water in the forward reaction is acting as base. In the backward reaction, in the reversible reaction, the nitrate becomes nitric acid, HNO3. So the nitrate accepts proton, so it also behaves as base. So two species behave as base. What is the catalyst in the contact process? As we said, vanadium oxide V2O5. Which information about carbon dioxide and methane is correct? In the first one, it says that there is no methane produced in the decomposition of plants. This is incorrect. It produces methane. Both of them are greenhouse gases. Yes, this is correct because both of them contribute to climate change and global warming. So this is the ester. Esters are substances formed when the carboxylic acids react with alcohols. How to know the carboxylic acid and the alcohol that forms the ester? Actually, the part that has the C double bond O, it is the part of the acid. It is the part of the carboxylic acid because it was C double bond O OH, and the OH is removed. So this is the part of the carboxylic acid. The carboxylic acid, it has 2 carbon atoms, so it is ethanoic acid. The rest of the ester, it represents the alcohol, and it has 3 carbon atoms, so it is propane 1-ol, so the answer is B. Which statements about lime? Lime is calcium oxide. It is made by heating calcium carbonate. Yes, because when we thermally decompose the calcium carbonate, it forms calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. Lime is used to desulfurize flue gases. Flue gases, the oxides of sulfur, the sulfur dioxide, which is produced from some factories. So it desulfurizes, yeah, which means it removes the sulfur dioxide. It neutralizes it. Yes, this is correct, because calcium oxide is basic, so it will neutralize the acidic sulfur dioxide. It is used to treat alkaline soil. No, because it is alkaline, so it will not neutralize the alkali. This is incorrect. The chemical name for lime is calcium oxide. Yes. So 1, 2, and 4. The answer is B. Which one is named correctly? The first one is ethanoic acid. This is incorrect. This is propanoic acid due to the presence of 3 carbon atoms. The second one, ethene. No, this is incorrect. This is ethane because it belongs to alkanes because it is saturated. The third one, ethanol. Yes, because it has 2 carbon atoms and belong to alcohols. The fourth one is propane. No, it is propene because it belongs to alkenes due to the presence of CC double bond. The structure of the polymer is shown. So what is the formula of the monomer? Actually, the first step that we have to make is to circle the repeating unit. This is the repeating unit. So to draw the monomer, you have to replace the single bond with double bond, and then you have to write the atoms that are bonded with the carbon atoms with the same arrangement. Okay, so this is the monomer. So is it number 1? Yes, because the first carbon bonded with chlorine and hydrogen, and the second one bonded with methyl and hydrogen. The second one, carbon atom bonded with chlorine and hydrogen, and the other one bonded with hydrogen and methyl. Yes, so 1 and 2 are correct. But the third one is incorrect because the first carbon is bonded with methyl and chlorine, and this is incorrect. So the answer is 1 and 2. So carboxylic acids are made by the oxidation of alcohols. Which carboxylic acid is produced from this alcohol? We have to count the number of carbon atoms. So this is ethanol. So it will produce ethanoic acid. In the following question, propene reacts with bromine. Let's draw the propene. This is the propene. Three carbon atoms. It will undergo addition reaction with bromine. So the double bond will be broken and 2 new bonds will be formed to attach with each bromine atom of the bromine molecule. So this is the product. So the product is C. It is really important to know that in addition reactions of alkenes with bromine in the bromination reactions, there is color change happens from brown to colorless. Plus, another thing which is really important, that the bromine atoms attach with successive carbon atoms, not separate carbon atoms like in D. Okay, so this is incorrect. The bromine attach with successive carbon atoms. So in the following question, which statements about ethanol is correct? It is used as solvent. Yes. It is made directly from ethane. No. It is made directly from ethene by the catalytic addition of steam to ethene. It is a covalent compound. Sure, yes, it is covalent. So 1 and 3. So the answer is C. The last. So nylon is made from 2 monomers. The first one is the dicarboxylic. It has 2 functional groups of the carboxylic acid. And the second monomer is the diamine, which has amine molecule NH2 in both sides. Water is eliminated. OH is taken from the carboxylic acid and H from the amine. So the rest of the molecule It has the amide link. And we have to eliminate the OH from the COOH and the H from the amine from the other side. So this is the amide link. So which choice is correct? Actually, we have two choices. It has the amide link, but in B, it is B and C, but in B, the amide link is not drawn correctly in the second time, so the answer is C, because the two amide links are drawn correctly. Thanks for watching.